I'd like to welcome everyone to today's session 2 of the career track, navigating your career in a virtual world, leveraging your strengths as a career differentiator. So my name is Jason Stubers. I am the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement for the Pepperdine Graziadio Business School. And today we appreciate your attendance here for our session 2 of our Navigating Your Career in a Virtual World, which is part of a 6-part series. As you see on this slide here, we have 4 more sessions after today, creating and selling your personal brand in a virtual world, which will be on September 23rd. On session 4, which will be on October 27th, what skills and experience industries are seeking. Session 5, the Graziadio Guide to Transitioning Your Career, which will be held on November 11th. And our final session, which will be held on December 2nd, which will be high-speed networking featuring industry roundtables. So we hope that you find today's session very valuable and that you will register for our remaining 4 sessions, which will be September through December. Later on in today's presentation, we will be having a Q&A. And so if you could populate any of your questions in the chat function of the Zoom meeting today, that would be most helpful so that we can delineate the questions and parse them out to our speaker later on in the presentation. We will have a presentation from our Career Resources Center. Stacy Bevins, who is a career coach for the Fully Employed program. And we also have Jessica Chang, who is unfortunately unable to be here today, but she is the Director for Career Advancement Fully Employed. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Stacy so that she can give her brief presentation.
Thanks, Jason. Hi, everybody. Happy to be here. Yes, like Jason mentioned, I'm a career coach in our Irvine campus and wanted to briefly go over with you some of the resources available to you once you start the program and once you're an alum. So Handshake. Handshake is going to be your one-stop shop for everything career and professional development related. This is where you can apply to internships and job opportunities, sign up for the events that we have year-round, and utilize a lot of our employer research resources. There's a lot of great stuff in there, so that's really going to be kind of your main hub for everything, again, career and professional development related. We offer one-on-one career coaching. So once you start the program, you will be assigned a career coach like myself, who will go over job search strategies with you, salary negotiations. We'll talk about, career transitions. If you're looking to really grow in your career, we'll talk about, your resume, cover letter, give you some interview tips and tricks, and networking tips and tricks as well. So really just making sure that, your career is growing and evolving. The events that we have going on are year round. So, I think I'm hearing some feedback. Is that on my end? Oh, there we go. Yeah, so our events that we have, they're year round along with our case competitions, and the topics really vary. So we have career and professional development workshops, which really focus on, how to build your resume, LinkedIn, networking like a rock star, and we have some consulting workshops as well. We have our employer info sessions and site visits. We recently had Facebook, Amazon, and Vans, recruiters from those companies, come and talk to us about, their culture, what it's like working there, types of candidates that they like to see, go through their interview process. So that was really informative. And then we have lunch and learns with our alumni, and of course, case studies and case competitions as well. And there are some pictures of our past events and case competitions. Career Leader. Career Leader is a really great online assessment for people who might not really know what sort of career they're looking to go into, or they have, a few different career options that they're looking at, but not really sure which one to hone in on. This online assessment will measure your interests, your skills, and your motivations, and will give you a career profile based off of the information that you provided. And we'll give you, some career options that might be a good fit for you, and just ones that you might want to explore. So a really good assessment there to give you some more information. And then lastly are our micro internships. So these are short-term paid remote opportunities through our partnership with Parker Dewey. So think of it like an internship, but just really short. So short-term projects that you can work on. And it's a really great opportunity for you to network, gain experience, explore a new career field that you might not have a lot of exposure to, and really build out your resume. So so this is kind of a career and professional development in a nutshell, and I'm happy to be here, and thanks so much for being here. And Jason, I'll pass it back to you.
Great, thank you so much, Stacy, for your wonderful presentation and being with us this afternoon. At this point, I would like to introduce our speaker for today, who is Dr. Robert H. Woodcock. He is both the Spiritual Life Officer and Adjunct Faculty at the Graziadio Business School. And we also have a special guest today, Candace Fitzpatrick, who is the founder and CEO of Core Clarity. So at this point, I will turn over to Robert, and so that he can take you through the rest of today's presentation.
Thank you, Jason. Commonalities between the categories, which she calls adjacencies. And I love that word, adjacencies. Isn't that a good one? And she created what she called the Core Clarity Key. So if you look at the key, everything above the line are external talents, talents used with other people. Connect and mobilize talents. Everything below the line are talents that we use within ourselves, reflect, energize internal talents. On the right side, we have the motivation talents, and on the left side, we have the interaction talents. So you can see that the talents are not equally distributed. There are 12 green reflect talents, 9 orange energize, 7 blue connect, and only 6 in the magenta quadrant. And as we learn about the talents, we'll begin to understand why they're in these different categories. So we're going to introduce you to what we call the Core Clarity Pyramid. Now, those of you who completed the assessment, I'm going to be emailing you. I was going to be emailing you just one small chart of your particular pyramid with some information on it that would be helpful to you in light of your top 5 talents. But Candace has graciously given us access to some more data and information and charts regarding that. And I'll be emailing those of you who completed the assessment and sent me your results with your consent. I'll be sending you some more insightful information about this. But each of those people has their own individualized pyramid based on their unique talents. We're going to spend some time familiarizing ourselves with the components of the pyramid. So this is the pyramid. In the top right corner, though, you see the key that we just discussed a minute ago. And kind of a fun, cute little ad here is the ants roaming around in the middle of the key. Those of you who are quick might make the connection between talents and tal ants. I see a few smiles there. I don't have many people up on my screen, but okay, we got a few laughs there. But anyway, that's what these cute little characters, these little ants that you see in here are tal ants. We also have this material without that, with other graphics in there, but we're having a little bit of fun today. So, but each one of these has some peculiar things about their colors and their activities that actually send a message about the particular talent. So you see the key that we just introduced there up in the top right corner. In the left corner, you'll see a visual representation of the talents in their corresponding categories. We see the talents are placed on the pyramid, though, in the number, with the number one talent at the top. Now, interestingly, Gallup does not give out the relative scores of each talent or how close they are to one another. So we don't know how steep or flat a person's pyramid is. If the number one talent is head and shoulders above the others, the pyramid may have a really steep slope. And for others, all 5 talents may be developed and used equally, creating more of a shallow pyramid. This person's learner down at the bottom may be very, very close to their achiever. Though we do not know the distance between the talents, we do know the number one talent typically flows down to affect all those other talents. So let's take a look at some of these particular talents. So what we see here with this individual who has achiever, individualization, futuristic, strategic, and learner in that order, is we see a person who is naturally driven, naturally discerning, they're a visionary, and they're going to be naturally sharp and generally very curious about life, about the world, about certain subjects. Now, I don't know how many of you know who this is just by looking at this pyramid. Those here that work with this person, they obviously know who this is because we've talked about this before. But this is our very own Robin Dottie. And you'll see here that the energize talent, the achiever talent, the get it done, naturally driven is number one for her at the top of the pyramid.
We're seeing the disastrous results. Public health, as much as the CDC.
No, that has no relation to my presentation whatsoever, right? Interesting timing. So that number one talent is in that energized quadrant, all right? Now we said this is a talent that's something used within ourselves, and we say these are talents that are used to push the self toward results. And you can see the talents listed there. Now in today's presentation, we don't have time to cover all 34 talents, but we're gonna look at 2 different pyramids for 2 different people, and we're gonna look specifically at those talents and introduce them. And so you see achiever here is at the very top. It's Robin's number one talent. Here's what achiever looks like in this presentation. Now notice, as I present these slides to you, you'll see 5 bullet points. The first 2 on every slide are admiration statements. Characteristics others are likely to notice and admire when you're using your talent effectively. The next 2 bullet points simply give more or additional information about the talent. And then, interestingly, the 5th bullet is a cautionary statement, right? Be careful, heads up, you may, having this particular talent, you may have this particular issue at times, right? So there is also what we call a natural statement. Naturally driven is how we would describe an achiever. And finally, each talent has an image, right? So there could be a talent here for achiever, but we don't have that on this particular slide. So achievers, if you just go ahead and read to yourself these bullet points, which you've probably already done, you'll see that achievers are all about getting things done. They are energized by accomplishments. In fact, we found that achievers can lose energy if nothing's being completed. So what do you think happens when an achiever does something that isn't on their ubiquitous, they've always got a list of things to do? What do you think that person does when there's something that wasn't on their list and they get it done? They add it to the list so they can strike it off, right? Just that sense of satisfaction, right? All about getting things done. The next talent that we see of Robin's is in the green reflect quadrant. These are talents that are used to gather, process, and make decisions with information and mental images. Again, this is an internally motivated talent. These are talents that are used within the self. So interestingly, Robin has 3 talents in the green reflect quadrant. Strategic, right? So strategics are great at seeing the big picture. They need to know the intended finish line, and without it, they may not know how to begin. Something we found quite interesting about strategics, getting from A to Z is not as linear a process as others may have experienced. Strategics may go A, C, F, M, Y, Z, right? And skip many of the steps in the middle, since for them, they were unnecessary for others. And for others, it will seem as if they left out important elements. I had an interesting experience when I went into my sophomore year in high school and went into from geometry into algebra. And my parents were quite upset when I brought, at the end of the year, they noticed my grades went from B, C, D, F each quarter down. And I was one of those. Strategic is one of my talents. It's number 6. It's not in the top 5, but it's right there. And I was one of those people that just wanted to jump to the end. You know, I didn't care about all your equations and all your thought patterns and all your analysis and all that, how you got there. And it can be tricky ground for people like this. And it's a great talent. It's a great strength. But having that, people that are much more step-by-step analytical, there may be a collision there between those 2 particular talents, say analytical or deliberative and strategic. Another one of Robin's green talents is futuristic. So people with futuristic can envision and articulate what the future years from now could be. In general, they see a future where many problems are solved and things are working well. We're fairly sure that a great example of this would be, if anybody knows the ultimate futuristic person in history. He had a little place not far from here, had a few amusements, a few interesting futuristic kinds of places. I think it's in Anaheim.
Disney.
Walt, yes, Walt Disney. Classic futuristic, right? In general, they just see down the line, and they're not so worried about things that are happening right now that might be problematic or might even get in the way, because they're, especially if they have strategic, like Robin actually does, futuristic and strategic together, they can really see their way ahead. Now, you can see that they vividly envision what can be by painting a picture of potential possibilities. They have a fascination and anticipation of what is to come, and this fuels forward momentum. There is a cautionary statement here. They need to find grounding in the present to turn dreams into reality, right? Futuristic. The next green reflect talent that Robin has is learner. And for learners, there's always something more to learn. They want new information, and they may get bored if there's not something new or different to take in, both in their jobs and their outside work. So they have an infinite capacity to absorb anything and everything. Lifelong learners. This happens to be my number 1. Love to be always just learning something new. Endless passion and enthusiasm for acquiring new skills, knowledge, and experiences. Probably best in leading edge environments where there's constant learning is going to be required and valued. They find the journey to competence exciting, destination not always necessarily relevant. Caution, need constant mental stimulation to avoid boredom. I know that's true for me and many of the learners I know, especially the higher up it is, it probably on their pyramid. And last, Robin has a talent in the magenta mobilize quadrant. These are talents that are used to motivate others to action. And the talent that Robin has here, we call woo, which stands for winning others over. So these people are fearless with strangers. They can talk to anyone, anywhere about anything. They identify commonalities among people, build rapport, then mobilize them to connect. Open, honest, trusting, instantly share personal details and stories. They may need to learn to set boundaries with others so their expectations aren't unrealistic. So woos love to meet people. There's no such thing as a stranger to a woo. It just so happens that Candace, who is with us, also has this talent of woo.
It's the only thing that gets me out of the house. And just for those that might have—
By the way, that's Candace you're hearing right now.
Yeah. For those of you who might have noticed, Robin has taken the assessment more than once. So we have 2 different sets of results for her. So you saw 2 pyramids and we showed the results for just one of those 2 pyramids for her. So just wanted to clarify that piece.
Mm-hmm. So now we're going to look at a different pyramid. This is the pyramid of someone amongst the 16 participants today who did submit their results for us to work with. And you'll see here, the very top of this person's, well, first of all, what you'll see in the upper left-hand corner is that all of this person's talents are in the blue connect quadrant and the green reflect quadrant. And their number 1 talent is harmony. Harmony brilliantly creates connections, consensus, and collaboration by finding common ground. Intuitively discerns patterns of positive interpersonal relationships, promotes calmness and emotional stability through pursuit of win-win solutions. They need to remember that keeping the peace may require healthy discord to clear the air. So there is such a thing as healthy, productive conflict. So people with harmony see the common ground easily and will quickly point it out. They may spend a lot of time re-clarifying what other folks are saying so that the differences can be aired in a healthy way. They're typically going, as natural mediators, they're typically going to dislike conflict. So if they can't find folks, they can't help them find winning solutions, they may simply avoid the group or the situation altogether. This person also has input. People with input love to take in information, things and even people, depending on their mix of talents. And whether the information is new or not, they're often eager to dive further into a topic, which leads to in-depth understanding. I also happen to have this talent of input. Unbelievably wide bandwidth for accumulating information, possessions, and or people. Now that's a little bit strange. The first time I saw that, I thought, wait a second, I don't collect people. But neither do I collect possessions. I don't have a lot of stuff, but I love information. I love learning new things and taking lots of new things in. But what does that mean when someone has input and they may have this unbelievable bandwidth for accumulating people? Well, probably like this individual, they have at least one blue talent, like harmony, like this person has, which means the peoplescape are hugely important to them. They may not be out in the landscape, picking flowers and pressing them and collecting them or whatever, but people are the sort of the fascination, and they love connecting with them and building those relationships. They are natural storehouses. Who do does anyone want to claim this, I should say? Who am I? Is this person with us today? If you are, unmute your mic and say hello. Kimberly, are you with us? Ah, no. Okay. Well, this is Kimberly Barrett. Does anybody know Kimberly? No raised hands, no. Okay. Well, I simply picked her because of alphabetical order. And this is, and just an interesting, kind of an interesting set of talents here as well, in that they are all in the blue and green quadrant. Now you saw a few minutes ago with Robin's, they were spread out amongst 3 different quadrants. So someone could have talents in all 4 quadrants, 3, 2, or unusually, they could even have talents in just 1 quadrant. For instance, for myself, rather unusual, all of my talents are in the green reflect quadrant. And that there's a particular, that's just you know, an obviously, well, I'll say more about that later. For Candace, she has 4 in this green quadrant and has 1, as I told you a minute ago, that woo, winning others over in the magenta. So adding that unique, you know, magenta talent into all that other green makes her just a little bit different than me, and a lot different in some ways, actually. So that's what this person's pyramid looks like. Let's talk about the other 2 talents that she has in the blue connect area that we haven't unpacked yet. Again, talents used to create, develop, and sustain relationships with others over time, right? So we saw her harmony. She also has relator, right? Now remember again, input. People with input, natural storehouses, collecting, accumulating information, possessions, possibly people or relationships. This fits really, really well with who she is, and having all this blue with her input. So relators purposefully forge deep, genuine, mutually beneficial, and ultimately lasting relationships. They enjoy working on small teams with trusted associates who have common goals. They need to reevaluate and revise guidelines regularly to avoid excluding potential allies, right? So the band can get fairly narrow for relators because they want to go deep, right? So they may have to step back and think about who they might be excluding because they haven't been able to go deep with that person, or that's their talents aren't, that person may not have a lot of blue connect talents, but there could be great value to being in a working relationship or something, working with them in some capacity anyway. She also has responsibility. People with responsibility are all about following through on their commitments. And based on our knowledge of the first fault line, they may have high expectations that others will also follow through on commitments, just like they do. So they develop their blue connections with others by being so dependable. They are known for this dependability. And we already looked at input, her particular, we looked at input and learner, which we were talking about Robin. So thinking about pyramids, we need to keep in mind that generalities can be tricky, right? Not every bullet for every person will fit. And generalities give us a starting point or frame of reference to begin understanding and appreciating those differences. So the pyramid gives us some insight into the individual and his or her talents. This is not intended to be a personality assessment. It's not intended to substitute for the DISC, right? Or for the Myers-Briggs, or to do any of those sorts of things. And it's to be taken for what it is and what we're presenting, and recognizing that we can get general about these things, but really it requires the input of the individual to begin to get specific about how this particular collection of talents in them looks in them, right? It would be interesting if we had Kimberly Barrett here, because if she was here, I was going to ask her a couple questions and get some kind of feedback from her about that. But they can be tricky, so we want to be careful. To become strengths, talents must be developed, right? Talent is a naturally recurring pattern of thought, feeling, behavior. It may or may not be developed into a strength or a certain degree or level of strength. Talents may explain bad behavior, but they're never an excuse for bad behavior, right? So if I have the talent of relator, and someone points out to me that wow, you sure are, you sure are kind of cliquish, or and it seems that I'm really I may be excluding other people. I can't just say, oh, I'm a relator, I only go deep with one or two people. Well, you can do that, but if you want to be the most effective in your work and your relationships, in your family and so forth, you may want to think about think about that. Finally, talents are relative and affect each other. Your combination creates the unique person that you are. So does anyone remember what we add to a talent to make it a strength? Skills, use, knowledge. The last area I want to go into in some detail is this area we call core drills, exploring core drills. And this is where we look at the combination of top 5 talents in their particular categories. So what is a core drill? A core drill is a diagram designed to show your top 5 talents in the core clarity quadrants. You see this, as I pointed out earlier, in the top left part of the diagram with the pyramid on it. And you can see over on the right side a variety of different core drills. Core drills provide an additional layer of insight to drill down to who you are at your core. And to be at your best, to learn, you need to learn to effectively lean into the particular talents in your core drills. So let's go back to Robin's pyramid for a moment. And you see again here the core drill for her. You can see how they are distributed. She has 1 in the blue area. She has 3 in the green here, and 1 over here in the orange. So when someone's talents are distributed in this way, we call this a lifeline. And 30% of the database are lifelines. And this is the description of what a lifeline looks like. They're salt of the earth. natural caregivers and caretakers. The focus of their care may be around serving and supporting people, gathering and processing information, managing and completing tasks. They experience joy when their actions benefit others. They tend to be servant leaders. They motivate by example, usually steady and reliable, but they can often feel overlooked or taken for granted. But they are an essential core component on every team. Sometimes people, though, with this core drill feel they are the ones who pick up the slack. They do the stuff other people don't necessarily want to do. And often this is heightened if they have responsibility and or achiever. So notice that in the core drill here, they do not have any magenta talents, any of the mobilize talents. But it doesn't mean that they can't lead others. So you may remember some of those talents are command, competition, developer, maximizer, positivity. Talents that we really associate like with people being in leadership and CEOs and that sort of thing. But that doesn't mean they can't lead others. Their leadership may look different though. We mentioned here that these oftentimes are servant leaders. And if they're using their talents fully, they will lead well because they are working in their talents. Remember, successful people don't have certain or specific success strengths that make them successful. No, they have talents that they have developed into strengths and can be applied in the work that they're doing. So they're known very much for leading by example. So it's helpful to think about the core drill. Another core drill we're going to look at in a moment as a spinning wheel or a pinwheel. You know, those little pinwheels that when the wind blows through them, you blow on them, they start spinning round and round. They usually have multiple colors on their spirals. But as individuals develop and use their talents, that wheel sort of spins faster. And when that's happening, we won't be able to see the categories or the talents that are there. Instead, the colors all begin to blend together. But it's really important that they are working in their talents. And when doing a job or task that does use their talents, their energy is eventually, or that does not use their talents, I should say, then they're eventually going to get zapped of energy and motivation. So you get energy when you use your talents and strengths. It's sort of like a nuclear power plant versus a coal burning power plant. And you're going to have an energy drain when you don't do that. And learning to pay attention to your reactions will help you identify areas where you should move forward or areas where you should not. You know, one way to do this is to get out a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle. On the left side, write gains. On the right side, write drains, and keep it next to your desk over the next week. And just make a note for all the activities that you do where you get a gain, you get energized. You could do more of that. You love it. And make a list of the things that drain you. And look at that list at the end of the week and see how much time you're spending in these areas. And then look at your talents. Is this because you're not spending time in your talents? Are there talents that you want to really develop into strengths because you know it'll get you out of that drain over into that gain, either in your present employment or in the future, what you're looking to do? It's a very helpful little exercise that we do with our students. So that's a lifeline. Let's look at Kimberly's. Again, as you notice, she has her distribution of talents here in these two quadrants, blue reflect and green, blue connect, green reflect. A person whose talents are distributed this way we call a bridgeoneer. This is what a bridgeoneer looks like. Masters at designing and creating bridges between information and people. All about interaction with the world around them and inside their heads. knowledgeable and approachable, often sought out for their sage advice. And typically they exude an aura of calmness and serenity. And for some, overcoming inertia, however, is a challenge, and they will need to look to others for traction. They add depth and cohesiveness to any team. They're great at helping others connect the dots and understand things. They tend to be great at comprehending in depth and then translating what they've discovered so that others can make better use of their insights. We like to say that these folks with no energized talents, right? They don't have any of those orange energized talents in their top 5. We like to say they're OJ challenged or orange juice challenged. But if they're doing something they love, they will have energy. But if the work is not in sync with their values, their passions, their joys, they may have a hard time getting things accomplished or overcoming inertia. Remember, those orange talents are talents that are used to push the self to results. And it's an internal kind of thing. So they're going to need outside input or other ways of finding that motivation. Only about 8% of the database are Bridgineers. Remember the lifelines, that largest number out there of core drills, 30%. You're going to have, people like Robin are going to find a lot of affinity. They're going to find a lot of other lifelines out there. Bridgineers, not so much. People like me with all my talents in that green reflect quadrant, or like Candace with all of them in the green and only one in another quadrant, much, much lower. 1.5%, 0.5% in Candace's case, I think. And so this begins to sort of open our awareness when we're looking at people, seeing how they're working, how they're functioning on a team, what they love doing, don't love doing, what they're not doing, what they're avoiding, what seems to sap and drain them, and so forth. This becomes, as I said, a workplace lexicon, a team building lexicon as well, with which not to categorize people, but to understand people. So let me check the clock. How much time do we have left? Do I have left, Jason, before we get to Q&A?
Technically, Q&A starts at 1:15.
I can't see a clock in front of me, so tell me how much time that is.
That is about 19 minutes.
So we have 19 minutes before we go to Q&A.
That is correct.
Sure, okay. Well, what next? What do you do with this, right? Well, let's talk a little bit about building your talents into strengths, using your talents to enhance your career. I'm going to pop out of, while I'm doing this, I'm gonna pop into another screen out of presentation mode here. But chat me up. Start using the chat. We'll be monitoring that. Maybe tell us what's your top talent. Some of you may know this, even though you didn't send in your assessment. Those of you who have done the assessment and were you surprised by your top 5 talents, or which ones? Which of your top 5 are you most excited about, and why? Which of your top 5 do you rely on the most? Which of your top 5 talents do you have more questions about?
Well, Robert, this is Candace. I have to report that Mariana is #1 competition, and she was the first one to get her top talent in there, which is so common and things that we see. And people with competition love to compete against others. They can see what their chances of winning are, and a lot of times they won't jump into a game if they don't think they can win.
Yeah.
So it's real interesting. I love that she was the first one here. And then Janice is number 1 learner. So learners just love to learn. It's my number 2 talent, Janice, I get it. We just love to soak up new information and to get new things. And I just want to reiterate one thing that Robert was saying. Our goal is to give you the tools that you can take in and talk to a prospective employer, current employer, or to make decisions. If, let's say, you're an entrepreneur and you decide you want to start your own company, how do you perceive yourself and how do you describe yourself to others? Lauren just came in with, I'm a number 1 developer. Lauren, whatever you do, you need to make sure that you have an opportunity to develop other people where you go. If you are put into a position where you can't mentor someone or teach someone else how to do certain things, it's going to pull and drain your energy away. Let's see, Charisse is number 1 relator. Small teams. If they put you into a situation where you've got 100 people that you have to work with and there are no small teams that you can get with, it's going to frustrate you. And what I love about the talent work is these are things that you have been doing your entire life on autopilot. And you probably didn't have a name for it, and you probably thought everybody else felt the same way you did. So being able to now take what you have always done and give it a name and start to look at it as, this isn't, you know, I mean, one of the biggest issues I get from people is they say, oh, I got all the boring talents. Well, it's only boring to you because you've known it all your life. What we are doing is opening it up for you so that you can go, oh, wait a minute, this is something good that I can build on. And being able to take that and to talk to people comfortably about who you are at your core, what you do better than anyone else, is a gift for an employer, but the bigger gift it's for you, is to be able to say, this is what I do naturally, this is what I'm really good at doing, and you have a name for it, so that the employers look and go, oh my gosh, as one of my friends from Oklahoma says, I'm in Texas, so you can understand. We do have friends in Oklahoma, as she says, you know, I want me some of that. You know, when you walk into an interview and you lay out who you are for the potential employer, even if that's not necessarily what they were looking for, they might make a place for you. We've had that happen for quite a few of the people that we've worked with in the past. So this again is for you to be able to describe who you are at your best. Nikki C, number 1, restorative. Nikki, you need to be going into situations where things are broken. You fix things that are broken. That gives you so much energy. So you need to make sure when you're, well, I'll give you an example of one of our clients. It was an architectural firm. They had this huge plotter, you know, these big plotters that make the blueprints and all of these maps and things like that. It kept breaking, and everybody else would come by and they'd see it was broken and they'd kind of turn around and go the other direction because nobody wanted to fix it, except this one person in the office. And so when they found out that her talent was restorative, they put her desk next to the plotter, and she got so much joy every time it broke, because she could get up and fix it, and she was using the talents that she has. And you know what? It was like this, it was like, you know, getting that jolt of caffeine, the espresso that you need, you know, just to get your body going. And when you know these things about yourself, you can intentionally put yourself into a situation so that you can be the best person, the best employee, and the best parent, or whatever it is that you're trying to be. Oh, Nikki's an architect. There you go. I hope you're near the plotter. That's funny. You are going to be great at doing renovations. You'll probably enjoy renovations better, or maybe even sites that are difficult, because you're going to be able to fix the building around the site, as opposed to having everything laid out for you and not having that challenge to go in. Paul says his number 1 is individualization. Okay, so Paul, here's the thing for you. Number 1, individualization. We are giving you a language. We are giving you skills and knowledge. The more you experience and use this, the more you're going to be able to take this information out into the world and do what you've been doing naturally since you were 15. If you go back to a high school reunion, I'll bet there's a couple of people that came up to you and said, oh my gosh, this is amazing, Paul. I just have to tell you, when we were juniors, I didn't know what I was going to do. And, you know, everybody's pushing, you know, hey, what are you going to do in college? And I didn't know. And you said, oh my gosh, you're so good at this. And you told me all these things that I didn't know about myself. And I created a career in that field because of what you said to me. And I have to tell you, I've had the best life. Thank you. I mean, individualization people see the natural gifts of other people as if they were bubbles over their heads with these talents in them. You now have some skills and knowledge. You now have some names to put to them so that people will have a common language to use. But individualization people, for me, this is my artificial individualization. It's low for me. So you have a gift that employers are looking for. You create great teams, you see where people are needed and where to be put. But your fifth bullet point is all about the fact that you see this so clearly about everyone else, but you don't see it about yourself. It's almost like you have blinders on to your own gifts. This is something you've been doing naturally for so long that you don't even acknowledge it as a gift because it's so natural for you. But I'm telling you, the employers we look for and we need people who understand themselves at this depth of a level that they can come in and place themselves and be able to stand up and say, you know, hey, coach, put me in. This is the best job for me right now because I have the talents that can meet that challenge. Or if they're offered a position that is wrong for them, they can stand up and say, you know what, I would love to be able to do that for you, but let me share with you why that is the worst thing for me to do. Because you know it's going to drain your energy. Josh, your number one belief, you need to make sure you're very clear what your values are, because your values are what drive you. It's an orange, internal, energizing talent. And for instance, if you went to work for a company that sold tobacco products and you had somebody in your family get ill with lung cancer, you're going to have a rub there against your value system, and it would be very difficult for you to continue working there. And you might not even understand why you're not satisfied at that point. So understanding your beliefs, what your values are, so that you can make sure you're in alignment with the company you work with the people you work with, is going to be really, really important for you. Anthony Peters, number one achiever. Yeah, it's, you know, you're great at making lists. You're great at breaking things down. You're great at putting milestones out there on, hey, you know, let's do a project. If you haven't studied any project management, get some project management experience underneath your belt, because achievers are like, this is so easy. Well, that's the point of the talents. When you have a position and you have a job where it is so easy you can do it in your sleep, the stress levels go down and your productivity goes up. So that's kind of a little bit, I think I caught a lot of you. So Christine asked, is there a large percentage of the database that has number one talent of Futuristic? Well, Christine, I don't have it in front of me in a way that I can get to that quickly on the number one talent, but I can tell you Futuristic is less than 10% of the population. I believe it's about 7, let's see, wait a minute, I have it up here. No, it's right at 11% right now in our database. We have over, for those of you who are analytical, I see there are a few that are, we have over 78,000 people in our database at Core Clarity. So we have enough to be statistically significant, but about 11% of them come in as Futuristic. So 1 in 10 people are natural visionaries. So no, it's not a very common one, and to have it as number one. that's even a little bit different. So Max comes in with ideation number 1. Oh my gosh, ideation people have the kind of a quirky sense of humor. Hope, Max, that is a piece that you appreciate, but ideation people have ideas all the time. It's like it's a popcorn popper of ideas saying, hey, do you think about this? Do you think about this? Do you think about this? I mean, they are constantly popping all of these ideas out there because that's what they do. And you also have futuristic and strategic. So your ideas are going to be focused on the future, focused on what could be, on what maybe should be even. And your strategic's kind of like a short-term futuristic. So you can do those milestones to get to that future that you see and you easily envision. You also have maximizer. Maximizers, their only standard of measure is excellence. So what is happening for you is you are looking for not just any future, you want an excellent future. You're not going to sit down and maybe counsel somebody with ideas to, wait tables the rest of their lives, unless those are the positions that that person is going to be great at because they can dance in the moment and they're happy in that environment. You're going to be looking at, no, wait a minute, you want an excellent future. And if you want an excellent future, you need to look at putting yourself in these areas, because just mediocre, just kind of making it is not a standard that maximizers can even live with. You also have input, so you're going to have a lot of information coming in and you can take it. And Eileen, you're coming in with maximizer number 1. Everything you touch, everything you want to touch, everything you need to touch, and everyone around you, you expect excellence of them, of yourself. And my dad's a number 1 maximizer. I will tell you, he paid well for A's when we were kids, because maximizers love to bring out the best in people. Not everybody likes that necessarily as a standard, and not everybody can live up to that standard. But maximizers do see excellence as the best thing that people can get to. I see Stephanie has restorative as number 1. Again, you need to be in situations, like I said before, where things are broken and you are fixing them. You're an activator with restorative, so you'd make a great first responder, because you're going to jump in quickly. Activators like to jump in right away and figure it out as they're working it out. So you're going to see, oh, we have a problem here. Let me jump in. Let me help make this right now. You also have ideation, so you're going to get a lot of ideas about how you can do it, and you're going to have 5 different ways to do it. And you're going to be able to use that in a situation where hopefully people are recognizing this is a gift for you. Because if they don't take care of a talent of significance that you have by sharing with you how really, just how perfect you are for this job, it's going to kind of drain your energy, because significance is kind of like a personal maximizer. You expect excellence of yourself and you only do things at that level. Then we have Christina, empathy. Christina, empathy is a blue talent. I will tell you right now, this is the hardest time for empathy people, because you feel the pain of other people. You understand what people are thinking underneath the surface. It's unless you've been trained in a hospital setting or in a medical setting, it might be difficult for you to go into nursing homes or hospitals if you can't help the people around you. You also have activators, so you're going to jump in to try to help people when they're hurting. But right now, everybody's hurting. It's like the world is hurting. And so you have to learn how to protect yourself to make sure that that empathy isn't pulled down. Let's see. I know there's some questions of now we're getting into the Q&A. Some good.
Let's come back to the question. Let's
yeah.
Let's look at this for a moment, and then we'll start the Q&A. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
A moment ago, what I had up on the screen was about turning, what you can do to turn talents into strengths. If we have time, we'll come back to that. But specifically relative to today's presentation, use your talents to enhance your career. Actively work to turn talents into strengths, right? And how can you add skills, knowledge, and some usage to some talents that you have that you want to be maybe working with more, really enjoy, feel energized by, and really make them strengths. So update your resume, obviously, and biography, but to really showcase these talents. Because again, this is a workplace lexicon. It's a you lexicon as well. And remove items that really are just showcasing weaknesses that you've mastered, things that you may have shored up because you had to do that in a particular job. Enhance important milestones and accomplishments by specifying how your talents and strengths worked in your favor to accomplish these goals, right? So we all know the typical, interview questions. What's your greatest weakness? What's your greatest strength? It can be asked in a lot of different ways. This is a much richer tapestry that you have now to talk about that and to talk about its application, and even think about things that you can do and value that you bring, that a talent that you're realizing this is only this far from being a really productive, consistent, near perfect performance in something, and I love doing it. And to be able to showcase that, begin to work on that and present it, know, show, grow your talents is really a significant move or step ahead. Get feedback from friends and mentors. Take what you got today, your talents, start talking to people about, what do you think about this? Does this look like number one to me? Does this look like when do you see this? How does this work? And you might be surprised to hear people say, oh my gosh, you're amazing at that. And you just thought it was something that everybody could do, or it wasn't, you couldn't, even monetize this or really use it or work. But if you're amazing at anything, people want to see amazing. People pay to see amazing. People pay to have amazing on their team, even if you're just amazing at one particular thing. And if you got good teamwork going and you understand the people around you and their talents, you can ask for help. You can build a better team that way. The third bullet point there, use your knowledge of talents and strengths to help others succeed. Share your talents with your boss and coworkers to engage them in the concept. Suggest that they take the assessment to help them understand their own talents, and you'll be amazed at the conversations that you might start having. Create opportunities to discuss your combined talents and working relationships, and match talents to job assignments and responsibilities. Take that initiative, you make the match, and then show others what the match looks like, and who knows, you may be doing something you love in a moment. Take work roles that use your talents in broader ways. So seek out work opportunities that will add these skills, knowledge, and use to your top talents. If you're going to volunteer for assignments outside your role that take full advantage of your talents, right? So maybe you're not working in your talents or your strengths right now and you're frustrated. What can you do pro bono right now that will really help you build that? Create a buddy coach relationship with a friend or a coworker who has similar talents. A couple of restoratives, we were talking, Candace was talking about you today. What does that look like to talk to another restorative? It can be very, very different. One might be restoring automobiles in a garage and be amazing at it. The other might be fixing, restoring IT systems, or the other might be restoring broken souls and psyches. And, it can cover, and to see how other people apply that and use that in their spheres can be stimulating, interesting, inspiring to you also. Mentor and support each other as you learn and talk about your shared talents. You can always create a buddy coach system with a coworker who does not share any talents with you. That's a provocative way to go about it. Share with each other your unique views. Get to know someone's unique views so you don't fall into some of those fault lines so much. Coworkers, clients, products, and services to gain a more comprehensive vision. right, of your shared environment, because we naturally fall into those fault lines. We think everybody has the same talents we do. And then it says, when asked to take roles not consistent with your talents, probably a lot of you are going, yeah, that's me. That's my job. That's where I'm at. That's why I'm at this workshop, because I want to get out of this and I want to get into this. I'm doing, I'm doing things I don't love. Well, maybe you can restructure the role to fit your talents now that you can articulate them more and maybe share them with those who are, supervising you. Ask for support. Bring in others who have talents to complement yours on projects. Find out what others' talents are, and then start hiring, quote unquote, hiring people, to bring them in. We have a little expression for people like me that don't have any magenta mobilized talents. I need to rent a magenta. I need to find the woos, the commands, the competitions, the mobile, the positivity and all of that. I really need that, and so I may need to rent a magenta. Someone out there that would be more than happy to share with me from that storehouse that they have, because they're probably just going to get more energized by sharing from their strength or talent. Suggest others who may be a better match for a role, but again, you need to know yourself. You need to take the time to get to know others. And so forth. Well, we won't unpack that anymore, because there's hopefully one or two things there that you've seen that you're thinking, yes, I could use that. I want to do that. So let's take our remaining time to get to more of your specific questions. Thank you for sharing your number one talent, your perceptions and all that. And that was great to hear you, Candace, kind of share with folks what that means in terms of their talent. So let's take some of the questions now. How much time do we have left for Q&A, Jason?
We have about 5-6 minutes left for Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, thankfully earlier, Candace actually answered most of the beginning questions that came in. So we actually are pretty caught up with our questions. We have a few that have popped in. Mm-hmm. The one question from Faye Tian, would the top 5 talents ever change over time? I actually took the test back in 2015 and felt that some are less relevant today.
This has only been around since 2001, so we don't have a lot of time to be able to show this, but the belief is that they won't change. Now, your top 10 may change in order, but your top 10 talents are probably going to stay static during your lifetime. We do believe that these are tied in with the synaptic connections of your brain. So brain injury or some type of a physical change to the brain may change the talents that a person has. But I have seen evidence from seeing people that we actually become more of who we are the older we get. And a lot of times the world around us has shaped us so that we are not necessarily working in the talents that we have. So I'm interested in seeing the research 20, 30 years from now to see if this is true or not, but I don't think they do change. I really don't. I think these are pretty much who we are. In fact, when I took the assessment, I called my folks up, and after I read my 5 descriptions to my parents, my mom said, well, yeah, you've been like that since you were 3. What's the news here? Well, it was news to me because I didn't know this. I just totally did not know this information. So it's an excellent question. In another 20 years, get on a call and hopefully I'll be able to answer that with some information that's come through. So one of the questions that I saw in here, Sarah had asked, she said, I was raised to go for being well-rounded. And so there are some people that are naturally well-rounded. They have talents in all 4 categories. We call them stabilizers. And what happens with people that are stabilizers is they can go in and basically go just about anywhere. They get into a group, a team, and they see, oh, they need help over here. So they add their talents over there. And then they, oh, you need help over here. And so it's kind of like if you think of about a jar full of rocks, you know, they're the water that comes in and fills all the spaces in between because they can see from any of the 4 categories, they can learn from any of the 4 categories, they can interpret from any of the 4 categories. They actually live in a space where they can fill where there are gaps. And so oftentimes they feel like they're a jack of all trades, but what comes after jack of all trades? Master of none. What happens for stabilizers is they will look at somebody who has a lot of green talents, and they'll look at their 1 or maybe 2, because they're going to have 1 talent in all 4 categories and then an extra one in one of those 4. They might look at somebody with a lot of green and say, yeah, I'm smart, but I'm not that smart. So they're comparing themselves. Then they'll see somebody with a lot of orange and say, you know, yeah, I get a lot done, but oh my gosh, you know, he does more in the morning before I get up than I do all day. Comparing apples to oranges in that case. They might look at somebody with a lot of blue talents and say, yeah, I connect with other people. I've got a lot of friends and, you know, I do really well in that, but she was Miss Popular in high school and everybody loved her. I'm not that good in that area. And then they'll look at the magentas. 49% of the people do not get a single talent in the magenta category, but there are some people that have 3 or 4 even in that category. And they'll look at those people and say, oh my goodness, she can sell ice cubes to an Eskimo and get a renewable contract. She's amazing when it comes to motivating other people to action. I'm not that good. So they're comparing themselves to all these different things, not realizing that their gift is the ability to see things from all different quadrants. And that in itself is a gift, because they become kind of the cog in the middle of the wheel that connects all the rest of us together. And stabilizers, we have found, are critical to every team, every organization, every family. It is one of those core drills that is just essential. And without it, a team has to work harder, a family has to work really hard to stay together. But those stabilizers are the ones that give them that balance. One other question that came through, yeah, by the way, I wrote down the micro internships. I love that idea. In different areas and do these micro internships to say, hey, is this something I want to do? You know, hey, maybe my talents would do well in here, and be able to grow your understanding of what skills, knowledge, and experience you can get to add to your talents to really make your career grow. So I love that particular side of it. And I do have to make one other comment for someone, Thomas, same age. As a number 1 learner, it is, you're always going to want to be on that leading, bleeding edge. And I think what you can do on how to market that piece of it is, guys, I was at Disney for X amount of years. I learned so much in the creative field, and I had this ability to be able to see things on from that new slant and know what the learning curves look like for people. I think you need to just turn it so that you can show a potential employer how having that wealth of learning can help others find their way. And you might be able to parse out the learning and learn, in your case, learn how different people need different pieces to add to their base talents so that they can be the best that they can be. So I would go in and look at it from a standpoint of, I have all of this wealth of learning and I can share that discriminately with people, instead of trying to share it with everybody all the time, I can be specific about how I go in and teach that. And if I were you, I'd send Dr. Woodcock a message and connect with him. And he has Ideation, and he would probably love to speak to you about how to do that one-on-one.
Great. I think we have time for one more question, and then we'll move into the event survey and a quick closing so that we can get you on to your afternoon. There was a question here that how would you compare Myers-Briggs versus Clifton strengths?
Totally different. Different constructs. There's, you know, some people see introvert and extrovert as possibly being the internal and external side of it, but you have to understand the theory behind Myers-Briggs, and I'm not going to go into that. But all assessments that are created in psychology, or that had been created prior to this one, if you can describe 95% of the population with your assessment, then it's good enough, put it out there. Because there are outliers that can't be described typically. The way Don Clifton and his crew went about finding these 34 talents is they started interviewing people. They interviewed almost 2 million people by 1998. Highly successful people in their careers. There are people like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, in their database of people that they went out and interviewed. And what they were looking for were what Don Clifton thought were success strengths, and they couldn't find them. And in 1998, a gentleman who worked for them, who's actually in your area, Marcus Buckingham, was working for Don, came to him straight out of college, and he went to Don and he said, Don, you've been looking for these elusive success strengths of yours for over 30 years, almost 40 years now, and we've interviewed almost 2 million people looking for them, and we haven't found them. But my gosh, we bought the Gallup organization about 10 years ago. Why don't we take all this information, give it to the data people? We own the computers now. Why don't we give it to them and let them see if they can find these elusive success strengths of yours? And that's when they realized it's not that successful people had specific success strengths. It's that people who were successful knew what their talents and strengths were, and they built their lives on them on a daily basis. So it was created, it was reverse engineered. They went out and they found these talents, and then they created an assessment to find them. And for me, why that is so critical is when I took Myers-Briggs, I looked at the results and I went, yeah, this isn't me. I took DISC and I'm like, yeah, this isn't me. Well, I'm in the tails of the normal curve. I'm one of those outliers. And I love the fact that this one captured me. So when you're looking at different constructs, it's hard to compare. There's just not a one-on-one comparison. So I am also personally invested in the fact that I'm an outlier, and this one captured me. So that's my answer for now.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Candace and Dr. Woodcock, for being with us today and giving us such an insightful presentation and answering as many questions that we could get to today as possible. So thank you so very much for taking our brief survey and for attending today's session 2. We hope to see you at session 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I'd like to thank again Dr. Robert Woodcock and Candace Fitzpatrick, the CEO and founder of Core Clarity, and for Nicole Green, our alumni engagement manager, who has put this event together, and I'm sure many of you have been in connection with her, and to the rest of the team members for being present today, and also thank you to Stacy Bevins for giving the career resources presentation. So we look forward to seeing you next month, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Thank you.